This is Keyed In with Max and Brent, unlocking the minds of the industry's top real estate professionals. And now, here are your hosts, Max Rabin and Brent Jackson.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Keyed In podcast. This is Max Rabin.
And I'm Brent Jackson.
Welcome back to the podcast. This is our season 2. We finished up our season a few weeks ago, and we had a little bit of a slow start coming back to 2022. So we just want to wish everyone a Happy New Year. Happy New Year, Brent.
Happy New Year, Max.
Let's just jump right in today. We don't want to take up too much of our guest time. He's important. So we're going to welcome Jeff Wilson to the podcast. Jeff Wilson is another titan in our business. He's another incredible realtor here in Washington, D.C., and we're really happy to have him on the show. And he's no stranger to podcasts either. I've heard him on Jared Metcalf, and he's a fantastic guest. So welcome to the show, Jeff.
Hey, thank you.
Happy New Year, Jeff.
Invite. Thank you. Happy New Year to both of you.
So let's just jump right into this. Kind of tell us about your history, how you got into real estate, your background, lay some groundwork, and then we'll dive into some deep thinking questions there.
Ooh, okay, so I'll just try and fast track it. I grew up here. I grew up in Bethesda, native Washingtonian. Went to school at University of Maryland and basically stuck close to the nest. I don't know that was by massive design. It just kind of was.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm old. I was getting into real estate back in the late 80s when the stock market crashed. I thought I wanted to be a financial advisor, and maybe that was a good time to get in that, but it didn't seem to be that way. And so arguably I kind of tripped into real estate, and 34 years later, I'm still here.
Yeah, so you're very much old school DC realtor right there.
Yeah.
Got some miles logged. But I don't think I realized that you were sort of native Washingtonian, as am I.
Yeah.
Yeah, stay close to the nest. I know it's kind of a weird thing. Isn't it kind of surreal when you live in, I don't know I don't have anything to compare it to. I've been here so long too. It's just, I know everything like the back of my hand. It does evolve, but don't you think it's a little weird to be in the same place?
I don't know if it's weird. I mean, I think about living in other places, and now that I know how to really look around, so to speak, I can see that life is very different in other places, from like the mindset of people to the geography to the density, to the job opportunities. I mean, everything is different. So I don't know if this is the right way to say it, but I feel like I hit the genetic lottery, even though it's not genetic, that I ended up being born in what I consider to be an amazing place. And I just stayed here.
Location.
Yeah. So I feel like I was lucky. I mean, I had no choice in the matter, as none of us do. But, I know a lot of people are born one place and feel a drive or a desire to move somewhere else. And when I was younger, I think probably the only other move somewhere else was New York City. And I could see living there. But as an older person and having lived enough of life, I see how demanding New York City is, arguably,
Right.
And I think DC is a little easier. And I think ultimately I prefer DC. So I'm glad I stayed.
And it seems like we've had a few guests that have, native Washingtonians. Yourself, and Max, you jump in here as well. Do you find it easier working your sphere, growing up, grade school all the way through, working the people you've known for the bulk of your life, or do you find it more difficult to reach out to those people?
I'll be honest with you. Most of my relationships came from college and thereafter. I didn't stay super tight with, elementary school. Sorry.
You're a busy person.
High school people, apparently. I don't know how to do that. Sorry. So I did just recently sell a house, or actually 2 houses, for a high school friend. But the vast majority of my clients have come from college and my professional pursuits thereafter. So I think it does help to be from somewhere where you know people initially, but I don't think it's required.
Well, it's like you have the knowledge of the lay of the land and like knowing all the different neighborhoods and locations because you spent your whole life doing that. And
Right.
that's kind of, I would say that, yeah, it's similar for me too. I definitely have more recently been in contact with people who I knew in my younger life, but most of the people I've done business with were people I met totally randomly or through the other business that I've done. And there you go. I mean, it's networking, right? Which is one of the things that
Yeah.
networking is something that I think that we definitely need to talk about, because you are a master of using your sphere. I know that you like to host events for your the people that, I know it's been a little tougher with COVID, but tell us about like how you use make that like your sort of personal niche to reach out to people and sort of spend time with them together. You're very good at that. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, well, I learned many years ago, but frankly, many years into my career, although it was kind of just seeping out of me anyway, is that I'm designed to play my way to success and significance, care of John Buffini. So with that said, I naturally gravitate toward entertaining, to getting people together. And it's definitely been super hard during COVID. I mean, frankly,
Right.
we've done nothing of that. But, prior to that, I would love to take people to dinner, have dinner parties. Probably my most successful dinner party ever was that I invited friends, clients. I mean, one couple who are friends and clients both, for their 1-year anniversary. So rather than giving them a gift for their wedding that would end up in some china cabinet somewhere, I said, hey, how about for your 1-year anniversary, we'll do a dinner party and you invite your friends. And so they
Really
invited
nice.
2 other couples. And, I think all told there was, and I didn't intend it to be this way. I mean, I did it because I liked it and I liked them and I was trying to do something nice for them. And I think ultimately when you're authentic in how you leak into your own life and into your own relationships, business follows. And I would say that at that table, I did maybe $10 million worth of business.
That's impressive.
So, yeah, I mean, and I wasn't, counting heads and counting millions of dollars. I was thinking, I really love you guys. We were so
Just having
honored
a
to
good
be at
time.
your wedding. Right. You picked the guest list. I had no way of knowing who they'd pick. And, it was just a natural extension of what I like to do. And it resonated with them. And I got to meet people I wouldn't have otherwise known. And, I think that's the best way to garner new clients, or one of the best ways is through referrals and personal introductions and, finding people that you have something in common with.
Absolutely.
So going back to this dinner, I mean, the setup, is it at your house, their house, or restaurant? You have a
No, it
couple
was at
homes.
our house. I really, really, really like entertaining in our home. And it's been a lot harder after having kids, right? Because our kids go to bed at 8. It's not like I'm going to throw some ruckus dinner party downstairs right below their bedroom, guests arrive at 7:30, the kids are all spun up, like nobody can sleep. So that just
Right.
doesn't happen.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but I have this fantasy, and I even bought a bigger, pre-COVID, and I'll bring it forth eventually again. Like I bought a
Yeah.
bigger dining table, and I bought more chairs, and I had our dining room table at our country house extended to seat up to 22 people. I'm going to crush it with the dinner parties, and I realized that one of the things
Yeah.
I love to do is setting a beautiful table, which you might not think it's beautiful, but I like it, right? And
No, it's awesome.
so I'm spending all this time online buying all these beautiful things for our table, from like pearl-handled knives to, Chinese vases and, big silver candelabra. Like I like people to come to our home and to know they're welcome, something special going on, that this isn't just, we're going to do some lean cuisine and have a row.
Lean-
Yeah, right. Here's a
No,
hot dog.
No, but like that's really funny because you've got this period of time where it's probably not a great idea to be inviting a bunch of people over to your house, but you have a lot of time to obsess about how you're going to set up the next one, right?
Yeah. I mean,
So
I'm
you'll
just
hit the
having
ground
fun
running.
with it. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm ready. We've got the tables, we've got the chairs, we've got, I mean, I remember just as COVID was starting, for the first time in my life, I had printed invitations really early. and we held these beautiful, like 5-sheet invitations for the Virginia horse races. Right.
Wow.
And so,
Yeah.
that was supposed to happen in May, and COVID hit in March, and they're still in a bag on my desk. Right. So, we'll get back to that, but that's just a real good thing for me because I really like connecting with people in that way. It works for me. And I think people that truly would resonate with me, that's going to work well for them too. And not that everybody has to come for dinner. It's not like that's a requirement by any means, but it's just an avenue for me. And it's something that I naturally gravitate toward.
It's awesome.
Well, Max, do you have any other questions on like the client networking? Because I want to dive into also like the agent networking, which you are by far one of the best agents underneath the Sotheby's umbrella brand, as far as networking across our umbrella of offices across the country and the globe. So I don't know, Max, do you have any more client networking questions?
What I wanted to segue to was, so there's a couple of years have gone by where, obviously Jeff has a multi-tiered marketing and is able to reach out to people in many ways. But so were you able to do something else to sort of replace this entertainment aspect and the event aspect, or did you just continue with your rest of your marketing? What did you do?
Not really, meaning I couldn't replace it, right? We were the super lockdowners, right? We moved to the country. I didn't go off that property for almost 3 months. I was trying to I managed my business as remotely as I could. I came in when I had to, my team picked up a lot of the slack, and so we survived. But the reality is I've done no events. My girls are constantly asking me, Daddy, are we doing the ice skating party again? And I'm like,
right.
I don't know. I don't want to give an answer to that, and I've even scheduled a couple things to go to different conferences, and then the XYZ wave comes, and I'm like, I'm not going now.
I know, it's so touch and go.
Doesn't make sense. So the reality is I did whatever I did, and I can barely remember it. To be honest with you, this whole COVID thing seems like this, you put your head in a wool sock and then, a year went by. Like, what the heck did I do? I don't even remember what I did. It probably was nothing magnanimous, but it might have been just touching people here and there.
Sure.
And, and not in a salesy way, because we were plenty busy with sales anyway, but just like checking in with people. It gave a great opportunity to check in with people about how they're really doing.
Yeah.
None of this like surface fluffy, like, hey, how are you? Like, nobody wanted that, right? We were all desperate for real connection. So any level of that was generally very welcomed.
Well, we go back to like when COVID first hit. So it's almost 2 years ago? 2 years ago? Yeah, 2 years ago. Yeah. And I remember we were on a Zoom office meeting. This is when everyone was like, now we got to do everything on Zoom. And I remember you were in your Virginia house, and you were very much in full lockdown mode. I remember like listening to you, and I was like, wow, Jeff is really not coming near the city. And I was Jeff, I was the total opposite. I was like, I'm going out there because I was getting calls, and I was like, I don't care. I'm going to go out there. I'll wear the gloves. I'll spray myself down with sanitizer. There's business to do. And I was on the street. And I mentioned this before. One of the best things about being in the city during that time was I could get anywhere within 5 minutes. There were no cars anywhere. Right. I could drive anywhere and park anywhere. So anyway, just
but we had different
difference there.
We had 3 young kids that were home,
yeah.
and obviously nobody was vaccinated. And I think at the beginning, nobody knew like how to really protect yourself. We were leaving our mail sit out for like a week or two. And, I think we all have a lot more tools at our disposal and more knowledge, and that's all good. But I also kind of couldn't leave, right? I was home with 3 kids.
Yeah.
Like putting them in the back seat of the car and driving off to a showing was literally not even possible. So like, I was definitely probably more locked down than a lot of people were, and it worked out fine.
Yeah. So Brent was talking earlier about the agent networking. I remember actually one time I was on a train heading to New York I don't even know what I was doing. Just going to entertain myself and do something for a weekend, and you're on the Acela train with your suit on, going to have some meetings with Manhattan realtors. I was like, what am I doing? I should be doing that. I'm just going to see a show, but So talk about like how you worked and with these other agents around the country a little bit.
I want to chime in just a little bit there too. Like, so we're all part of different platforms, and one thing that I will say is, anytime an agent needs help in Washington D.C., and on our side it's a little frustrating. It's like the first name that always comes to mind is Jeff Wilson. It's like somebody in Denver, Colorado, like Jeff Wilson's your man. And somebody in Miami is like Jeff Wilson's your man. I'm like, wow, this guy is totally connected to every city, every agent across the country.
Well, I mean, thank you for that. It's not exactly true. But so the reality is that I totally tripped into this, right? So like I've been selling for 34 years now, and I've gone to different networking events and things, but I'd never quite got it. And most of the networking I did, ultimately I thought was just kind of cheesy, but I didn't know if there was anything better. And I kind of came to Sotheby's after feeling like I had to leave my former company. Like I was not staying there. I was done, finished, kaput. So that former company, I was there for 4 years to the day, and every single day was this whole toxic poison juice about Sotheby's. Wow. It was the firm culture, period, end of story. So I believed it, right? Yeah. So I came here, meaning Sotheby's, thinking that this whole thing was fake, but at the end of the day, in my mind, it was my only choice because I had to stay in the luxury sphere. I wasn't going to go to another company that had a luxury division or, was hoping to be luxury. I wanted, and not that everything we do is luxury, but it's hard to get luxury if you don't vibrate that. Anyway, so I came here thinking the whole thing was fake, and I had interviewed at Compass and decided that wasn't the right fit for me. And Dave DeSantis early on said to me, like, hey, are you going to go to the global networking event in Vegas? And there's nothing I kind of hate more than big networking events that
a bunch of realtors
are cheesy. And then I'm totally not a Vegas person. I'm not a gambler. I kind of hate the smoke and the whole idea of the whole thing. And I was like, ah. And he's like, well, I think you should go. And, we're going to do this panel on, assessing the competition. And because you had just, interviewed at Compass and went to New York and done the whole 9 yards, and, maybe you would be a good panelist to really talk about kind of how you made your decision and what other choices there are out there and what the advantages of our firm are. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. So I went to Vegas. For the first time, I didn't hate it. I think the hotel was smoke free. I'm like, oh, how nice is that? And, we stayed in these beautiful rooms, and I'm like, I don't remember Vegas like this. This is awesome. And so I went on to this panel, and I'm sitting with these titans of real estate that I didn't really know because they're all new to me, right? But I kind of figured it out pretty quick. Like I was sitting next to Nikki Field. Was on one side, and then the big agent in Carmel was on the other side, and at the time the big Aspen agent was there, and I'm looking around like, what the heck am I doing up here? You got to be kidding me. And Nikki Field just leaned into me and she goes, Jeff, let's just have fun with this. And trust me, having fun at that panel was the last direction I was planning to go in. I was just petrified, right? And
what was the topic? Do you remember?
It was basically on understanding the competition, meaning what are the other companies out there, and kind of what are they pitching and what do they offer, and how is our value proposition different or better? And because I really just had the whole dog and pony show at Compass, they wanted me up there talking about that. So
got it.
I did. And it turned out that, I relaxed a little bit. I told a couple jokes. It responded well. My alarm went off right in the middle of the panel because I had an alarm to call my husband every day to tell him if I was coming home for dinner or not. And sure enough, here I am in Vegas and the alarm goes off. And, I held up my phone. And I'm like, this is the single best, marriage preservation tool I've ever had. And I shared it with people and they all laughed. And long story short, it was a great time. And so the woman from Carmel, and I'm trying to keep this short, but it's a bit of a story and I'll shorten it up.
Go on, please.
She's a Sotheby's agent, obviously. And she goes, look, we have a family owned brokerage and we were Sotheby's for years. And we went to Christie's, when I was with Long and Foster for many years, which hung the Christie's shingle. But the whole thing was, in my opinion, a fraud. There was nothing Christie's about it whatsoever. I didn't even know what Christie's was. So we went to Christie's. It didn't turn out so well. It so now we're back at Sotheby's, and here was the line. We realize this thing is real. And I'm like, holy man, look at this. There's 500 people in this room. I'm sitting on stage with like 12 killer agents.
Yeah.
Everyone carries the same Sotheby's card. There's 3,000 other people that are here that aren't in this room. I'm like, let's go make this real. And so I literally changed my mindset about the whole company and my whole position and my whole reason for being here. And I dropped the poison Kool-Aid, mindset about Sotheby's. And I went to town and I just started extending my hand and I started meeting people. And it was that random.
Right.
There was no way for me to know, like, who are you? Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? And like, I would just see people at a party and they'd catch my eye and I'd go right over and say hello. And it turned out I met a couple reload directors and a couple managers at different offices and a couple agents. And then I just decided to let loose the doves. I would specifically go to Sotheby's events and I would reach out to agents in advance and say, hey, will you have coffee with me? Will you have lunch with me? Will you have dinner with me? And that's really just how it happened. I can't say that, I had this big plan that I executed.
Right.
Just like getting into real estate, I kind of tripped into it, finally realized what was hitting me over the head, and then I just went to town with it.
Yeah, you're meeting some like top-notch people, obviously, along the way, people with things in common, and getting to travel around the country and see all these nice places too. I mean, that's I know what you've been doing, so I've kept up with you. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I went to the one summit that Sotheby's had. I went there a couple times. I forget if I was ever even on a panel there. I don't know, but I was on a bus going to one of their developments, and I met a few people there, and they've invited me to come to their office, and and I think I met one of the brokers in New York at that same trip, and like that's who I was going to see. When I saw you on the train, we went to New York for like 2 days of pure networking and pure agent relationship building. And then we went to Greenwich, Connecticut, where we did the exact same thing. We went to their sales meeting, we met a bunch of their agents. We went on tour with their broker. I mean, what I've learned is that you might meet like one person and you may never do a transaction or get a referral from that one person. But when someone rolls down the hall at their office or they do some internal communication and they're like, hey, I need an agent in, your name can come up. And it's also been good for me, for my clients as well, because, I've sent 2 referrals out to a San Diego agent. One of them just closed on a $6 million house, and another one made an offer on like a $2 or $3 million house. And it helps me to help my clients, because I don't just say like, oh, let me consult my relocation director to see if I can find a name on the spreadsheet for you. Like, nobody wants that. You're like, hey, if you're going to San Diego, you got to use my guy, Clinton. Yeah. Right. Like I pre-sell a lot of that at the beginning, like, if I know somebody's got a home in Aspen, rather than just saying like, oh, call me when you're ready to sell. Like, nobody does that, right? You don't do that to your friends, right? So you're like, hey, I'm sure you're never moving, but if you do, when you're ready, I've got the guy for you.
Yeah. And like I said, I've seen you in action at those meetings. I think you hit the nail on the head as far as like you're authentic and you're real with your connections versus, we've all been at those meetings where someone will come up and give you a card and go on to the next person, and it's an artificial 5-second, hey, how you doing? I'm from Denver, Colorado. It's like the
sprinkler,
exactly.
They're throwing business cards everywhere, and I'm like, you might as well just go to your sub shop and like stick your card with your thumbtack on there. Like, what are the odds?
Up on the bulletin board.
I used to look at that and think maybe I should do that, literally like 30 years ago. But, now I know better, but now I go into the sub shop and I see the agent with the card with the thumbtack. And I think, seriously, I know that I'm going to sound snotty and I don't mean to. I'm like, good for you. You're trying something.
Something.
I mean, you're doing something. I think it's misguided, and I think you could, spend your energy or your time better, but at least you're trying something. I think a lot
Fair
of
enough.
agents know what to try.
Brent.
I'd like also to dive into your life at the top. I'm fascinated with this website.
Yes.
It's one of the best, if not the very best, in the DMV. So I'd love to kind of
Thank
get
you.
the background on that, how it came to be, and how profitable it is for you.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting deal. Well, I find it interesting. Maybe you will too. But anyhow, so I was at this conference called Star Power. I don't know if you ever heard of the Howard Brinton days, when he would bring together all these stars, agents that were just killing it, right? And they would make a university, right? They'd have like keynote speakers, and then you could basically take classes from all these different agents and run around and do whatever was of interest to you. And my colleague at Long and Foster at the time was one of the stars. I wanted to be a star. That was like
Right.
a big deal. And I didn't feel anywhere near worthy of these people. And I know them all now, right? And I'm like, well, I sell more than you now. But anyhow, you got to grow into stuff, right?
Sure.
And so she took me under her wing, and she had this big website, and she's like, oh, Michael Russer's teaching this class on how to develop this website. And, I can introduce you, and you can get into the gold, elite, triple platinum, triple secret class of his, if you pay more money.
Right. Obviously.
And anytime someone puts up a velvet rope, I want to leap right over it. So, I paid all this money to get in this class and develop a website. And in a weird way, it's not like I had this huge passion to develop a website. I just thought, oh, this could be cool, or this might be a good idea, or she seems to be doing well. And it ended up being one of the things that I, again, tripped into that ended up being good. And mind you, I spent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours on this website. I mean, I had to pick all the buildings. I wrote most of the copy. I came up with these ideas about the hidden penthouse list and the IT building list. And, as we add buildings, which we're doing all the time, it's like this major surgery effort to get all this.
Oh, yeah.
Long story short, we've rolled it forward and done it, modified, tweak over the course of probably 12, 14 years now. Lots of money spent on it too. It's not like it's free, right? I pay for massive blogging and SEO and all that stuff. I don't pay for
the
ads.
maintenance is really where it gets you, because you have this idea for a website, or because it's sort of like a niche website, although it's real estate oriented, obviously. But you have this great idea for it, and you want to put, and you're like, the concept is there. Putting it together is very difficult, even if you have other professionals, like real internet professionals helping you. And then it's just the ongoing maintenance, because after a month, it's like something breaks or it's stale. It's crazy.
Yeah, it breaks, or you find broken links, or certain pages don't work,
Totally.
or your naming convention for your specific listings is wrong because it starts with a number, and you're like, and then you want it to look prettier and sexier and have video. And it's like, there were times where literally I was on 2 conference calls a week for 2 hours a time. And, hundreds of thousands of dollars went into doing that site, and it's never done, right? You keep going. So it works really well because it's actually not about me. I mean, I do have my own kind of signature website, jeffwilsondc.com, which is more kind of about me per se. I didn't want Life at the Top to be jeffwilson.com because I wanted to lead with properties. I figured that if somebody's interested in real estate, they're more interested in a property than they are in an agent. So even today, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that this is an interesting marketing concept, actually, because most real estate websites are just it's a landing site for an agent. Maybe it's connected to the MLS data exchange, and maybe it has some search functionality. Maybe it doesn't. But for you, you have this concept, and obviously, I know it wasn't cheap to put it together and maintain it. But maybe that's a better way to approach doing a website as a realtor, is to come up with more of a concept idea, something that the user wants to interface with more as an overall vibe, rather than just looking at another realtor and
Right.
their stuff.
I mean, I'm sure I get 2.5 visitors a year to jeffwilson.com or
Right.
jeffwilsondc.com. I mean, I'm sure that if my mother were alive, she'd be one of those visitors.
Googling
right?
you.
I get
Yeah.
that, right? Yeah. So I put it up there just so I could maintain like a web presence if somebody wanted to find me. But I think if people Google me, they probably find Life at the Top first,
I
because
would hope.
Google puts it at the top of the search rankings. So with that said, I didn't want it to be about me. I wanted it to be about a property type and a lifestyle. And even today, I mean, this was a rare day, but I love it when people call me. Like, believe it or not, I don't really want a lot of web leads, which sounds pretty crazy, but I don't want them. Like, I'm so old and cranky now. Like, I really only want to work with the right people, and I don't want to be chasing leads.
Yeah.
So, my comment to my team is that if somebody calls me, it's a done deal, because it says so much about them, first of all, that they tend to want to actually talk to a person. And typically it means they're seeking advice, and, they're not just scrolling through Zillow at 3 a.m, right? So it happened today. And what happened was somebody called me and he started talking about a building that I know well, and we've done a bunch of sales in. And I'm like, oh, yeah, this and that. And we just sold that one. He's, oh, yeah, I saw that. I missed it. And I'm like, yeah. And there's this other one that was off the market, but I think it's coming back on. Let me send it to you. And I have this other seller I'm talking to, and here's what that is. And so we had this long conversation about, that he's selling his big house, and they just bought one in Annapolis, and they want to downsize. And because he called me, and because, if you will, I'm enough of an expert in that building and in that market segment, that I was able to chat away with him for easily half an hour. And then I asked the question, I'm like, so have you hired an agent to sell your home yet? Well, no, we've talked to a couple people. And the next thing you know, he's like, can you come over tomorrow? I'm like, sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, his house is probably 2.2. And the property that they're going to buy is probably 1.5. So what's that? 3.7?
Yep.
That's
I mean,
impressive.
so I don't get that 3 times a week. That's certainly not the case. Let's be real. But, that will pay for the website plus some for the year.
Yeah. You got it's a hyper focused thing, and you're getting the right kind of calls. So it's working.
Right. When somebody calls, it's pretty much a done deal, because they're actually looking for help, and I can give them the help that they need. But I will say that it's also come after 34 years of being in and out of these buildings and in and out of these neighborhoods, and knowing how to talk to people and ask the right questions. And, so I'm not trying to make myself important. That's not the point. But the real point is that I think we all have opportunity out there, and it's how we capitalize on that opportunity that leads to whatever level of success we will achieve.
So I have a couple of follow-up questions. One, so the leads that are coming in via email or, contact me, do you fish those out or push them down to your teams?
Yeah, for the most part, I don't take those leads anymore. Like, we just got a lead on one of the penthouses or properties, if you will, at the Ritz Georgetown. Okay. And it was like 6-point-something million. So I'm taking that one.
Right.
I've already Googled the guy, put him into WealthX. Like, I know the deal. But I will give away the other leads. Like Hugh on my team, he just sold a house for like 2.2 something to somebody that came through the website. We used to go after all the people that would sign up, if you will, like people that would sign up for a listing manager account, or somebody that would just give their name or whatever. And at this point, we don't do that. At this point, we want to have somebody reach out to they have to take the next step. Yeah. Right. So if they take the next step and they actually fill out a form, or they ask for information or request a showing, those are the people that we engage with.
Okay.
Do you have an idea on the amount of business you get from the website, whether it's a percentage of your business or the actual volume amount in a given year?
It's pretty low, just because we don't pursue it that hard. I think last year was maybe 12 or 14 million out of Life at the Top.
It's still very good. That's
still pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh, Well, to me, that doesn't seem like a lot.
Yeah, bro, for you, $100 million.
I'm sorry.
Like,
It's, Jeff Wilson. It's like, oh, well, I'll take 12 or 14
3 kids
million.
in private school. I mean, like my
Then you definitely need that extra volume.
I do. I definitely do. Yeah, I know we could do more, and that's one of the things we were talking about on our team business planning the other day that we're ongoing with. Just ways to engage people more that engage with the site, ways to not manipulate but manage the data and use our own data to create more sales.
It's so many different things you can do once you start. Like if you got a website, if there's anyone doing anything on the website, pulling down information, taking in contacts, following up constantly, if you have enough people to actually physically do this, then it can definitely, it's a numbers game. But like you said, if you don't feel like that's really, like you said, you've been doing this too long, you're a little grumpy over it, and I totally understand that too. I'm not quite to the full grumpy level yet, but it's like I have some different lead sources, and I'll do a phone call, and the phone calls are like, I feel like I'm very good at them now, but it's the same phone call over and over again, and it's like you just know that you're just going to have to be checking in on that person again until you finally get the appointment, and then it's if it's a buyer, how many weeks is this going to be? You have no idea where you're going. Yeah. So it's very.
I mean, we do that, but I will say that we tend to be focused on the higher end people that come through the website. I mean, we routinely get $1.5 million, $2.5 million, $6 million inquiries. So that's where we want to stay. If somebody signs up for a listing manager account and they're looking at, $400,000 one bedrooms and they haven't reached out to us asking for help, like we'll never reach out to them.
Yeah. It's too loose at that point.
Right.
You could be like Zillow and turn around and sell that to somebody else in the firm or another agent. I want 50% of this lead. Yeah.
I know. I've thought about it, and that could be one of the income streams that will bolster the year. But
quite frankly, Jeff, I think I'm gonna have to force you to do that. If you got a website that's bringing in those kinds of leads, I think you're gonna have to start referring those out on a very specific basis, because I mean that's the whole point of having the website. You built this machine. You gotta crank the dollars, man.
Yeah, yeah.
Gotta do it.
I think we do well enough. I mean, basically where we spend most of our time is just maintaining the website and keeping it fresh and current and accurate. It's just a 73-headed monster at this point. But every time somebody calls me from the website, I do business with them. Literally, I think my track record's 100%.
Sounds good.
We sold one over at 2501M for almost $3 million. They called me. They're like, "What do we do?" I'm like, "Here's what we do." And I met them literally 2 hours later. This is pre-COVID, and showed them a bunch of things and some private listings. So I think all of this is just helpful if you know the market and you track the market and you have something to talk about. You have to be knowledgeable. Like nobody wants to be talking to an agent who can't talk about properties without going to MLS.
Right.
Well, I mean, not that you don't MLS, of course you do, but you still have to have the conversation prior to pulling up the database.
Right. You've touched on a lot of stuff in this conversation, so I think anyone listening to this should have a really good idea of what works for you from your personality and the kind of business that you're doing. But I mean, you've been doing this a long time. You're obviously one of the top agents in DC and, nationwide, of course, ranking extremely high. But when we have listeners who are younger agents, newer agents getting into the business, what is like the best advice that you could give to a new agent? What is something you would tell young Jeff if he was starting out now?
I'd say go west.
Go west, young man.
What I didn't know. So when I was a new agent, I was like rapid. I was making no money and I was churning expireds and I was literally going wherever houses were expiring. And the reality of that was Germantown, right? And I don't want to poo-poo Germantown, but I don't aspire to Germantown. It was never a place that I hung out in as a kid. I was just going for business, and I did hone my craft. So that was the real benefit of just doing a ton of business in expireds. I got really good at listing properties, good at calling people back who hung up on me. But with that said, my advice to anybody starting out is, like, before you start chasing business, decide, like, in your heart of hearts, like, what business do you really want? Like, is there an area that you resonate with? Is there a type of client you love? Like, I see all these people saying, I love first-time home buyers. And I'm like, is that true? Or is that just what you have? I mean, I love, big executives that buy houses and 6 months later decide they want a different house. That's what I love.
Yeah, after gutting it and renovating it, right?
Yeah. I love people that will move a lot, right? And the higher, the better. So I didn't start out that way, right? Like, I was selling $100,000 townhouses in Germantown,
right?
And it paid the bills. But was it aspirational? Did it motivate me other than money? No. Did I meet some lovely people? Of course. Did I help a lot of people? Absolutely. But, honestly, I started roughly the same time Michael Rankin did. Michael was smart. He stayed right here. He stayed right downtown where things were 30 times closer and 5 times as expensive and sold 20 times faster, right? I wasn't doing that. I was like, I can get a townhouse in Germantown, all the way up 270. Like, every day I was on 270. And so, I don't know if Michael was specifically focused in that, but, he has a bigger business than I do, and because he's just been focused in this area longer. And so good for him. So I understand the desire to run after business and to get business and to feel like you're winning. And I get that, and to refine your craft and to practice, so to speak. But I still think if you focus on exactly what you want and who would be your ideal client and what phase of life that they're going to be in, do you really resonate with first-time buyers? Do you want to have those people that are selling $2 million townhouses and buying $3 or $4 million single-family homes, detached homes? Like, what's going to really float your boat? And then figure out how to get into that market. And the thing that wasn't available it was available, but just nobody was doing it. I started, again, 34 years ago. There were no cell phones. There were no fax machines. I was pre-fax machine.
Damn.
Nobody even had a personal computer. Like, MLS was a dumb terminal in your office, and real estate agents, we had the advantage that we were the gatekeepers of the information.
Yeah, you literally had the keys.
Call us, literally. Yeah. The lockbox key was a physical key that you stuck into a metal lockbox, right?
Yeah.
And there were no photos of properties because there was no internet. So, I mean, things have changed dramatically. So what I'm getting to is that, there were no teams. There were no assistants. There were no official mentors. I think when I started in real estate, not that there weren't professionals, but it was kind of the world of, and I know this is going to sound sexist, and I don't mean to sound that way, but a lot of housewives, that would come to the office because they had something to do at the office, and a lot of misfit toys, because anyone could get into real estate. As long as you could fog a mirror, you could be a real estate agent. And I was the misfit toy. I didn't fit anywhere else. I didn't know what else I wanted to do. So I fell into that category. But fast forward now, you see all these teams, and you see, partnerships, and you see what I'm doing, which is taking on a young agent with great promise and grooming him or her to be a real top producer, just because he or she, in my case, he is exposed to way more than he would see on his own.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that there's great opportunity, again, to a new agent. Like, maybe you don't go make $3 million your first year because you tuck under somebody's wing and you learn, right? Like, once you've learned, like, that knowledge can pay you back over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. If you're going after like a deal, well, that may not pay you back for a very long time. So I think that there's a lot of smart people out there, meaning younger agents that realize that there's a lot to be learned, and they can fast track their success by getting a coach or getting a mentor or joining a team. There's a lot of different models out there, if you will, than seemed available at the time when I started.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that I was missing anything. There were just a lot of people that helped me, and I've almost always had a coach in one form or another. But I think it's a little more transparent now, and I think it's a little more like a business model now, and you can pick anything that you want it to be.
Yeah, it's very broad now. The game was a lot smaller back then. Even 20 years ago when I started, it was way smaller. So it's a very different animal.
And you're a great teacher. We've done some deals with you and some of your other people that have come and gone from your team, and you're a great steward of the brand of the industry,
absolutely.
and you're a phenomenal teacher. I mean, you could get up on a podium anywhere across the country, and
as he has.
Yeah, you're really, really good at what you do.
Thank you. I appreciate that, because you guys are rock stars too. So it's nice to know that that's what you guys think of me. Because that really matters, man. Your reputation. When I was young, I felt like everyone was more like competition, and it was a little more combative. And now I think the smart agents, and I'd like to consider myself one, it's much more collaborative. Because you've been around a while, a lot of people. Like, you got to treat people well, and it will help you, and it will help your clients, and it just helps your overall experience, I'd say.
1000%. Jeff, so we've got some incredible stuff. Like, you literally gave us everything we were hoping for. You are like such a great guest. I mean, I'm really, and it's just so smooth too. I think we should just go straight to rapid fire. What do you think, Brent?
I love it. Rapid fire. Yeah. Everything you talked about was like spot on, and
amazing.
I love the life at the top. I think that's,
me
even
too.
like down the road, you could sell that to someone, right? I mean, who's going to buy?
Check out my latest, Live in DuPont.
Live in DuPont. I have to check that one out too.
It's nowhere on the SEO rankings yet, but we're just getting started.
Awesome.
Nice.
So rapid fire, 5 quick questions, painless. What is your guilty pleasure?
Popcorn.
Popcorn.
Okay.
Butter? No butter? What do we got here?
Butter, salt, and often sugar, like a caramel corn, or not caramel. What's it called? Kettle corn.
Kettle corn. All right.
Homemade, of course.
What book are you currently reading, or what book do you recommend to our listeners?
Essentialism.
Okay. Yeah, someone else mentioned that recently.
Unbelievable. I don't read per se anymore. I listen, because I can walk the dogs and listen. I can clean the house and listen.
Yep.
So I can go through a lot more content. Essentialism I've listened to probably 5 times, and it's still queued up for me.
Great.
Favorite TV show?
Letterkenny.
Don't know that one.
That's a comedy?
Yeah. So good. So good. It's brilliant. You got to watch it 3 times to even understand what they're saying. It's fabulous.
All right.
Favorite vacation spot?
I'm going to be mundane, but it's true. Ooh, there's 2. So back in the day, it used to be Provincetown. It's just this fabulous bohemian village of drag queens and dogs and strollers and great restaurants and beautiful light and art galleries and fabulousness. Lately, and I don't know that it's been knocked off the pedestal, but for our family vacations, we've actually fallen in love with Sarasota. Go figure.
Nice.
Oh,
we rent these little houses with pools, and we walk into dinner, and we walk to the beach, and it's like a great place for a family vacation.
Just started 22 here. Any predictions for this calendar year, 2022?
I think it's going to be another raucous year. I think that the agents that are tenured, that understand the big picture and can garner people's trust as you're advising them through this minefield to whatever level of success you and they have together, are going to do well. And I think, sadly, the agents that, might not have experienced as much and don't know how to lead a client to a winning position, and let's say in the buyer realm, it's going to be a tougher market. So I think what we're seeing in most businesses, and I think it's true for real estate, the people that are doing well are going to do really well, And the people that are not doing so well, I think it's going to be a hard market.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally
I think we've been running hot for a little while. So it's a cycle, right? So we'll just have to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I mean, I've got all these buyers, and I get another buyer referral, and I'm like, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, ah.
How about some properties to sell would be nice.
Exactly. How about a listing? Listings are really fun. I mean, they're major tension right now to manage the wave that comes your way, and to do it smartly, and to make sure you don't blow it, and you really do the best you can for your seller. I mean, that's major pressure right now.
It really is.
Yeah. So it might seem easy to be a listing agent right now, but each thing carries its own, pluses and minuses and its own challenges.
That's a whole nother show unto itself that we can definitely do at another time. Yeah. But we really appreciate your time, Jeff. Thank you so much for coming on the show and giving us a great kickoff to our 2022 new season. Thank you so much again. Really.
And Jeff, you're welcome. As a thank you, we're donating like a small portion, some proceeds to charity of your choice. I don't know if there's a charity out there that you're really fond of, that you dive into deep.
Yeah, I'm not deep into them, but I found them just before the pandemic. I think they're amazing. It's called Mary's Center.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. Mary's Center.
Yep.
Thanks for listening to Keyed In with your hosts, Max and Brent, unlocking the minds of the industry's top real estate professionals. For more information on selling your home, find us online at keyedinpodcast.com. Remember to subscribe to Keyed In on Apple Podcasts or wherever you like to listen to podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at Keyed In Podcast, at Rabin Max, and at Brent E. Jackson. And follow Max on TikTok at MaxwellRabin_properties.